Hey everybody, welcome to Losing Your Mind with Chris Cosentino. I'm your host, Chris Cosentino. We are here to talk about people that inspire, and all my guests are inspiring in so many different ways. And I'm really looking forward to digging deep into how they got to where they are, to the top of their game, how hard they've worked, how much they've given up, and how they're giving back. So without further ado, here's our next guest. Hey everybody, welcome to the newest episode of Losing Your Mind with Chris Cosentino. I am here with Gregory Gourdet. Those of you who have not or do not know him, that's your fault, not mine. That means you live under a rock and you've never watched Top Chef. Gregory has been on 2 seasons, but also has run an incredible restaurant that I've known for years, Departure, in Portland, which now he's moved on and done Kana. So Gregory, welcome. I'm really excited to have you. We've talked about this for a while. We talked about this during the pandemic, and then I kind of shelved the whole concept of doing the podcast because everybody was, I think, a little too panicked to have conversations.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's going on? I mean, you turned part of the pandemic for you into like this massive finishing your book, which
yes.
This one right here, buddy.
Yay.
You know the only problem I have with this book? It's not signed to me inside. Like there's no, it arrived from Amazon when I ordered it. Like, hey Chris.
You gotta support independent bookstores and get the signed copy. You should order from Powell's.
It actually wasn't.
I'll sign it the next time I see you. I'll come visit.
I got it at there's a place in San Francisco called Green Apple. It's our local spot to buy books. And I went down there and got it, but there was no Gregory signature because you haven't been in town. So we'll arrange that.
I mean, yeah, honestly, like for me, the pandemic was, I don't know, it was something that kind of worked out in my favor. And I actually had a lot of guilt surrounding what I was doing early on because I actually had quit my job of 10 years on New Year's Eve, 2019. So I had planned this whole year of travel and research. I was going to finish my book. I was going to go to Haiti. I was going to go to like Thailand. I wanted to, go down south and study barbecue and, travel up the Atlantic North and study American seafood. I was going to do all this research, in preparation of opening my restaurant Khan. But yeah, I was locked down at home like everyone else, but, I was watching all my friends kind of have to close their restaurants and shut down. And, a few really, really crafty ones, were able to pivot to takeout models and, CSA boxes and all that good stuff. And, but it was hard to watch, and then of course, Black Lives Matter erupted. That culminated with like, George Floyd's murder. That was like the kind of breaking point of all of that. And living in Portland, Oregon, where we were right in front center of kind of the national protest, both for equality and against police brutality. So, I sat at home, I protested, I finished my book, and then, Top Chef called, and I was able to film that season of Top Chef and Top Chef Amateurs as well. So it ended up being quite a busy year, and I'm grateful that I was able to afford at that time to reflect on, the industry. The whole reckoning thing happened, and that was a pretty big movement for us. And, it really kind of helped me like take a look at, my place in the restaurant world and what type of leader I want to be and what type of restaurants I would run and how I want Khan to be. And I was able to publish my book and we're kind of coming out of it, but, we still got a long ways to go in terms of beating this COVID thing. So here we are.
Yeah. I mean, you've been outspoken, you've been straightforward. Look, I've known you for years, right? You are who you are. You've never hid it. You've never, play a facade. You've always been Gregory is Gregory. I've known you for years. I've never known you any other way. What you see is what you get. And that's what I love. Like we've had so many fun evenings at Feast doing dress up events, whether it's, everybody dressing punk rocker and roller skate 70s, we've seen it all. Yeah. And I think what I love right now is that you've come forward with your restaurant Khan, the food that you put out on Top Chef which was a monumental success, I would say, from a perspective of there was more viewership during the pandemic watching your season than history, right? Put more eyes on the food that you wanted to do in Cannes. And how do you feel that that not only benefited you, but allowed you to have a bigger voice?
Sure. I mean, I think, it worked out in a really major way because we filmed All Stars pre-pandemic and then it aired right when the pandemic began. So it was actually this kind of awkward balance of, with so much death and tragedy in the world, should we be promoting, this entertainment show? And it's like, yes, because, it's an hour of relief of, a lot of the stresses of the day-to-day of living in the early pandemic. It reminds us of what the best parts of working in a restaurant, what restaurant culture can be. I was so happy, with All Stars. And, I think the culmination of that season for me, was really being able to bring my concept Con to life in Restaurant Wars. And, going on All Stars, I thought back of all the challenges that I failed at epically my first time around when I did Top Chef Boston, season 12. So I was like, yo, Restaurant Wars is definitely a challenge that I want to succeed in. I think I had one challenge that I had a really bad fish day on the first season. I was like, I want my fish cookery to be on point this season. So there's all these things. Restaurant Wars, I mean, it's the biggest challenge on Top Chef. So, I think it was extremely successful because the key to Restaurant Wars is always to have a very cohesive concept. It's to have something that's super put together, super thought out, and a menu that flows with each other. And it's fucking hard, So for me, I was so excited for that challenge. And there's actually a pitch challenge which led up to that, where we had to pitch our restaurant concepts. And the judges picked 2 concepts that stood out from the rest. And for me, I had literally already been thinking about my concept Con for already 2 years. I had a business plan. I had menus drafted, because I've been working on Con for 4 years already, behind the scenes. So I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I had done multiple pop-ups doing that food. Backstory is, I did not grow up cooking Haitian food. I grew up eating tons of Haitian food. My family was extremely Haitian. My family is I'm first generation. My parents moved here to the States when they were in their kind of mid-20s to pursue education and raise a family. So my entire upbringing was Haitian, but my mom cooked all the time. I never cooked. So just like I had to learn how to make French food and all this other stuff, I too had to learn how to make Haitian food. And I spent a lot of years of my career learning other cultures, and I really thought it was time for me to dive into my own culture. So I had cooked with my mom for quite some time. We did pop-ups at my restaurant Departure. We did pop-ups at the Beard House. So I was super ready, and we crushed it. And I was very, very honored and proud to represent the Haitian diaspora, because for a lot of us, seeing that type of food on a national platform it's extremely rare. And really outside of maybe Miami and Brooklyn and Montreal and maybe some parts of Massachusetts, Haitian food is pretty hard to come by. So it was a really important day. I'm really, really happy that I was able to present that to America and the world that watches Top Chef.
Well, I think, like you just said, I think there was that juxtapose where it's do you promote the show during this time of fear, right? When everybody's not quite sure what's happening next, we're all locked down. But it was a huge respite for people. It was that moment of relief where it was 1 hour where everybody would be super stoked to see you, and everybody that's competing, and just feel a sigh of relief for a minute. And it was something for everybody to look forward to, because they're in their minds, I was hearing this from a lot of different folks. I mean, I was watching it. I mean, that I was sending you messages as it was going. But I think the thing that was so exciting was seeing the public respond in a super positive manner across the board, because they were looking for that sigh of relief. And you guys gave them that, not realizing that's what was going to happen. And it ended up becoming, everybody's oh, it's Top Chef night. Everybody would hunker down, cook a meal, and watch and it was a positive life for everybody. And I think that was pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that I really realize is just the power of Top Chef and how popular the show is, and just kind of embracing that. And I think Top Chef really has a huge opportunity continually to kind of really just raise some important issues and to really represent, what's going on in our culinary industry. I think stars, and giving me the platform to, elevate Haitian cuisine and bring it to the national spotlight was important. I think this past season, with the level of diversity and kind of, being able to represent so many different types of cultures that truly represent what American cooking is, I think that was really important as well. And people really resonated with all of that because it taps into different communities who don't necessarily see their food on TV, different cultures that don't necessarily see themselves represented on such a national platform. So I think it's really important that we kind of are able to represent ourselves well,
Agreed. So how did it feel being on the opposite side? I mean, you were judging, right? You switched over.
It was a lot easier.
As one was airing where you were the competitor, it then shifted and Gregory became
I mean, honestly, competitor. I love the edge. I love being judged on like such a harsh platform, and I was quite envious of a lot of it. But sitting in hair and makeup is quite nice as well, for the first time. And no, I mean, I think just being able to be a part of these young chefs' journey on Top Chef and to know what it feels like, and we were actually mentors as well as judges, so we always tried to give really positive feedback and like really give them like straight up tips on how they can kind of elevate their game or kind of like take these challenges head on a little bit better. Always telling them to keep it simple, which is like something that's very challenging on Top Chef. I've been in the same boat, but just being able to sit there and of course have it being in my home state, which we've been working on we had worked on for a couple of years. So, especially with how some media really portrayed what happened in Portland, and granted, yes, there's a lot of protests and there was a lot of unrest in our state, and forest fires were really the worst in our state's history. But there is a natural beauty to Oregon, and there is a strong community, and I was very honored that we were able to elevate and show some of the best things that we have to offer to America.
Well, I think Portland is a really special, and Oregon as a whole, right? It's such a special place. I have a deep connection there. I love coming up and visiting. I mean, we had Jack right there. I spent a lot of time with in Oregon, in Portland, and the community at large there, culinarily, is so tight. It's so unique, right? And I want to bring up a little bit about we have a very good we have multiple mutual friends, but one in particular is Ben Jacobson, and I want to talk about Ben's friends and what that organization is doing and how it's not only started in Portland, but it's now branching out, and how important that is to the hospitality industry.
Sure. So Ben's Friends, for those who are not aware, is a recovery group for people in the industry, so restaurant industry. So we are chefs, bartenders, managers, sommeliers, winemakers, and we are all in recovery or trying to stop drinking or stop using drugs. And it's really this amazing support system. And it actually didn't start in Oregon. We started a chapter in Portland a few years ago, but it started down south. And the story is, the facts are, Mickey Bask and Steve Palmer, really old friends in the hospitality industry down south, were opening up a restaurant with Ben was their chef, and he had struggled with a lifelong addiction to alcohol. And while opening this hotel, he took his life in one of the hotel rooms. And at that point, it really was a breaking point. And Steve and Mickey decided that we needed something specific for the restaurant industry, because of all industries, we have the highest rate of addiction. So, while a lot of us have gotten sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, oftentimes it's hard for a bartender to walk into an AA meeting and explain that he's a bartender or they are a bartender, or this so and so is a winemaker, because we love our profession, you know what I mean? And we don't want to give up doing the things that we love in the hospitality industry, and oftentimes that involves working with alcohol. And so Ben's Friends was founded and created, and now we have chapters across the country. And we also have virtual meetings once a week. And I'm a leader in Portland with our good friend Gabriel Rucker, and Sherry, who is a wonderful person who is kind of leading us in Portland as well. So yeah, we have weekly meetings, and there's no true format. It's not a true organization or a way of living like Alcoholics Anonymous is. It's just really a support system where we can openly discuss what it's like to be in recovery or trying to recover in an industry filled with drugs, alcohol, and stress.
And I think that's more than ever, that mental health and drug and alcohol abuse have come to the forefront, right? And it's now something that's readily spoken about in our industry, where for years it was very taboo, right? And I think having this option is incredible. Gregory, you've been sober for how many years, if I can ask?
12 years. Indeed. I got sober in Oregon. And, honestly, like getting sober completely changed my life. When I was a young cook, granted, I did pay close attention and I really stuck by my mentors, but I was a fucking disaster. And it really took some time for us to repair our relationships. But yeah, I literally remember the first day I was late from work, from drinking or doing drugs. And I was working at Jean Georges, and I was working in Nicotine, which is the cafe at Jean Georges, in the flagship at Columbus Circle. And the chef was like, I had to do a clopen, I had to close, and then I had to open brunch the next day. I was like, chef, I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna go straight home and be straight back to work. And I ended up, checking my phone on my way out, headed uptown, got wasted, ended up passing out on a friend's couch and waking up late for brunch, called chef. And, walking into brunch, a couple hours late and having chef working your station is never a good feeling. And you can feel the steam coming from him.
Oh my God, Greg. I can visualize that. That.
Yeah, I remember that day very well. And unfortunately, that was just the beginning. It was another full 7 years. And it just progressively got worse. I was addicted to cocaine. I was addicted to freebasing cocaine. So I actually was in rehab when I left New York, and I moved across the country. I moved to California, and I still fucked around, and I ended up actually moving to Portland because of the job at the Nines Hotel, Target Departure. And I still kind of did not get myself together. I started working at this small cafe called Saucebox, which closed during the pandemic, but it was there that I walked in and I got the chef position there. And my sous chef, he was like, hey, my name is Tom, and I've been sober for 2 years. And it was literally the first time I'd ever met someone who had actually been sober for 2 years. And that really was a starting point of me just kind of taking a look around. And, I had a lot of friends who lived in Portland because I went to college in Montana, and a lot of people had moved here, and just watching my friends be, owning houses and having children. And I was literally the same age and just getting drunk at the bar. And I just really felt that it was time for change. And for me, the final, the last straw, it really wasn't this whole huge dramatic thing. I ended up, staying up all night one night. I did a bunch of coke at a bar when, I was trying to not drink, and I just ended up just failing miserably. And my friend was like, you can't stay at my bar and not drink. So I started drinking. And I got the advice from a really good friend to go to AA. And I took a good hard look in the mirror, and I asked myself if I really thought if I was done drinking and doing drugs for the rest of my life. And I could honestly, deep in my heart, I felt the answer was yes. And I walked into my ex Tom, take me to my first AA meeting, and he did. And that was 12 and a half years later. And my life has completely changed because of it, and I'm so grateful for my recovery. That's for sure.
That's amazing. And I think that's a really powerful thing for a lot of people in our industry and not in our industry to hear, because our industry is riddled with stress. And there is that moment when everybody gets off work, right? It's like shift, drink, meet the other restaurateurs at the bar or chefs. And there is a way to enjoy yourself without that. I mean, I'm 3 years dry, and um, it's a big decision. And you can only drink so much sparkling water at the bar before your bladder's going to explode, right? But it's I've actually stopped going to the bar just because I don't. It comes to a point where, let's be honest, right? It does feel awkward, right? Like, how many large events have you and I done, whether it be a feast event or a food and wine event, and everybody around you's party hardy, and I've got my little bottle of Pellegrino, and at those events they don't have mocktails, they don't have non-alcoholic beer, they just have still or sparkling water.
True, it's true. I mean, for me, I took a break. When I got sober, like, I was like, no, like, I did not go out for 6 months. I actually started running at night to kind of replace my bar time. I would just get off work at like 11 o'clock at night, and I was like training for my first half marathon and my first marathon, and I would just literally run through all the suburbs and neighborhoods of Portland, training for my first marathon. And like New York City is a huge part of my life. It took like 2 years for me to walk back into a club in New York, and back then I was drinking Red Bulls like crazy, like, because I had so much anxiety about just like everything. Like, not that I wanted to drink, but like I just felt anxiety in general about being in a space like that. Now, I don't go to bars, just for fun. I go to restaurants, if there happens to be like an after party or something, like when, like pre-pandemic, of course, I'll go to the bar, but like I don't enjoy going to like, it's not something that bothers me, but it's just not something that I gravitate to, going to a bar, at night.
Yeah, priorities
change.
Just
going home and eating, or
I think priorities change pretty dramatically, and you're running, have you had a chance to run in the DC Swelter? Oh, it's so fun, isn't it?
I'm actually recovering from a knee injury, so I did a nice 45 minutes on the Peloton this morning.
It's
muggy. I know you like that.
It's muggy there. So let's talk about the book, right? I love it. For those of you who, it's great, right? I mean, look at how dapper you look on the front, man. I think it's very, very veg forward, which I think is always been you, one, and two, flavor profiles very unique, very distinct, and I'm curious as to how you put all the recipes together. What was your thought process in doing it? I mean, was it a lot of it based off Con, or the goals to utilize Con recipes for this, or vice versa?
I think I lost you for a second.
Sorry. I think you're having.
Yeah, I got bad Wi-Fi. So
glitchy. So, in regards to building the book and all the recipes, was it based off Con, or is it a mix of the two, like things you did in everyday life?
Okay. So yeah. I mean, for me, so the backstory of the book is, I really wanted to create a book that was really helpful for people. I think a lot. People oftentimes base their books on their popularity, but I really wanted something that helped people. So like, even if you had never watched Top Chef, you had no clue who I was, you could pick up the book and it would be very helpful. So it's a health focused book. It's based off the paleo diet, which is pretty much what I eat. It's gluten, dairy, soy, and refined sugar free, also free of grains and legumes. But the whole point is that it's inspired by different cultures and different recipes from all around the world, including my own Haitian heritage. My time, exploring and learning about, Pan-Asian cuisines, the Caribbean diaspora, the African diaspora. It's all food that you want to eat. It's all super designed for the home cook, very step by step. Half of the book is filled with year-round ingredients that you can pick up any day at the store, like carrots and red cabbage and cauliflower and chicken thighs. And then a small percentage of the book is super seasonal, berries, peaches, asparagus. And then a good portion of the book is kind of based off, getting people familiar with maybe some ingredients that you don't use all the time, like coconut oil, almond flour, tapioca starch to create a gluten-free flour blend. The world of chilies, which I'm obsessed with, diving into that, fish sauce, coconut aminos, kind of these specialty ingredients that are still fairly accessible. If you have a Whole Foods or an Amazon account, you can easily get these ingredients if you live somewhere a little bit more remote. So that's really the culmination of the book. And, it's my first cookbook. So I literally just wrote down every single favorite recipe that I ever thought of, from like what inspired me at Jean Georges when I worked there for like quite some time, to some of the favorite dishes at Departure, like the Brussels sprouts were a really popular dish. There's a version of that for the home cook as well. And then these kind of classic Haitian dishes like the fried plantains, the sweet roasted plantains. It's something my mother cooks quite a bit. So it's really this huge encompassing thing. There's 200 recipes in the book. It's 14 chapters. And over 120 recipes are vegan. While there's still a robust seafood chapter focusing on all sustainable seafood options, there's a birds chapter, and there's also a meat chapter as well. So it really covers everything, and I really want it to be this kind of like health Bible for people who are adventurous, who love bold flavors, and just want to eat healthy. A lot of people who know me, maybe from Top Chef or something, they actually don't know the book is a health book, because they just like, oh, I'm going to buy Gregory's book, and then they open it and they realize that so many of the dishes are all of the dishes are actually quite healthy. So it's a win-win situation.
And I just want to make a point here. I was talking to you while you were working on this book. You tested all these recipes in your home. These are true home tested recipes, because there were moments when you and I were having video conference calls we were doing our coffee talk, right? Yeah. Catching up during the pandemic, making sure we both weren't losing our minds. And you were doing everything in the house. Like you had, I remember you did a pan shot. You're like, look what I'm doing. And you had ingredients everywhere, but you were testing everything in your house. And I think that's really important for the public to understand that this truly is a book that has been tested at home. So it works at home. It's not a situation where it's like, yeah, I took a restaurant recipe and just plopped it in.
I actually started like the first couple of recipes that we did for the proposal. I tested them at the restaurant, and then when we actually had 5 recipe testers besides me, and the first couple of recipes were a disaster. They were like so wrong. I'm like, no. And I was actually working out of my friend's house because they have a huge, beautiful house in Northeast Portland neighborhood. And then as soon as the pandemic hit, I was like confined to my little 1,000 square foot bachelor pad. And just like cooking my little butt off with like pots of pans everywhere, like begging people to like come by and pick up food, like whole cakes, but I mean, I think the other important piece is, my writer, JJ Good, he's a very good friend of mine. And, his voice was really helpful in just making sure that the recipes were super, step by step, because he truly has the perspective of a home cook. And it was really important that this book was not super chefy, and it was really accessible. And yes, you'll have to shop for a couple specialty ingredients, but yes, you should definitely have chipotles in your pantry. You should definitely have whole cinnamon sticks in your pantry and zest them fresh. You should definitely have a bottle or at least a couple different types of fish sauce in your pantry, if you truly want to make exciting food that's inspired by global flavors.
And I think that's a really, really important point that you're making there. It's like, it's really based off having high quality ingredients, right? Cinnamon sticks, using a microplane and doing them fresh is going to make a much better flavor than buying pre-ground garbage in a little glass bottle that's baked in the sun that you have no idea how long it's been there, or if it's even really cinnamon, right? It's liquid salt with umami and depth and character. And you're talking about basic cooking items that we we take for granted because they're a part of our everyday, right? We live and breathe with these ingredients. A lot of people don't understand that. They buy pre-ground pepper.
Mm-hmm.
That's scary. That's not
garlic.
real pepper.
It's garlic, So yes, the book is definitely, there's some simpler recipes and there are some other recipes that take a few hours, but make that the Sunday project to get the braise on and make your spice mix. And a lot of the book is actually heavy on pre-made sauces and ferments and vinaigrettes. So like there's like chili oils and chili paste and dressings that you can, and ferments like sauerkraut and kimchi. You can make all this stuff ahead, and it definitely keeps in your fridge, and definitely because there's so much acid or vinegar or salt in these items. And anytime you want to bang out a dish, you can, or even just simply roast a piece of fish or roast a piece of chicken or roast a head of cauliflower. You can pull out some of the sauces from the book because there's a huge sauces chapter. And those definitely a great way to up your game as well. So there's a lot.
So what's next, Greg? Are you going to do a con book? Are you working on one?
Or you? I think yes, I'm definitely working on a con, but if I were to do another cookbook, which I am thinking about, I think I would lean into more kind of just like a huge part of the book is diving into cultures and explaining and exploring how certain dishes come to be. Oftentimes, I think I use quite often as an example, why is there's a sauce inspired by Jamaican jerk in the book. It's for a whole head of cauliflower, and I pack it with red chili, so it has this beautiful red color. But there's also ginger, and I use coconut aminos for soy sauce. But questioning why is there ginger and soy sauce, or why is there soy sauce in some Jamaican food? And it's because of the Chinese immigrants. They brought that to Jamaica, and being able to explore these stories, and how did curry get to Japan, and being able to just explain the history behind some of this food. And a lot of it oftentimes has to do with colonialism, indentured servitude, and people migrating to different parts of the world, oftentimes not on their own accord. But part of the book definitely is truly about the culture behind a lot of these dishes. And I think if I were to do a second cookbook, I would lean into that culture element as well, but also create simpler recipes, because I know people are really pressed for time. So I'd love to create a book that dove into more global cultures that was actually a little bit easier to cook. So you could kind of do like fully weekday meals. But outside of that, I'm definitely moving ahead with working on con and opening con, hopefully opening early next year. So I'm really kind of buckling down and trying to just get everything on focus. It's my first restaurant. I don't have partners. I'm kind of doing everything on my own. Being able to the pop-up over the course of last winter at the height of the pandemic, I personally feel like I learned so much. And it was a really fantastic experience. Thousands of people came to see us. People flew from New York. People flew from Canada. People drove up from Wyoming and Southern California to come to the restaurant. So it was really awesome, and I'm really grateful for all that support. And I'm just trying to buckle down and focus on getting this restaurant open, because it's been 4 years in the making already. So I'm excited to get it going post-pandemic, hopefully.
Everybody's excited for it to happen. Let's be honest, right? I wasn't able to come up when you had your pop-up, and I was really bummed. And you and I have seen each other a little bit here and there since. Do you have a location? You don't have to say. You could say not applicable at this time. I'm all good with that, dude.
If I say anything, someone's gonna hear this and I'm gonna get blown up. So
okay, we'll leave it alone. We'll wait.
Yeah, we'll just leave it alone.
Let's leave it alone. It's being worked on at this time. Undisclosed location.
Exactly.
I love that. So, Gregory, you have spoken multiple different times. You are very, very vocal about Black Lives Matter. You were part of the protest programs going on in Oregon, and you've spoken pretty much free reign about not only Black Lives Matter, but about equalities in the kitchen, equalities in the world, right? And I wanted you to touch on that here, because I mean that's a huge look. Touching on it is barely even fair, right? It's a huge conversation to be had.
Absolutely.
And I think you really you've traveled, you've worked in kitchens all over, you've seen things, and I really think your perspective is extremely important right now.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I worked the past 10 years at a corporate concept, and I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity. I had so much opportunity there. I was able to travel. I was able to work with hundreds of cooks, hundreds of young cooks. Many of them have gone off to, be chefs and sous chefs, and they're still getting promoted to this day. It's really amazing to see. I'm extremely close with a lot of them. Um, you know, the truth is, last year, when, at the eruption of Black Lives Matter, there was the restaurant reckoning where a lot of industry workers, took to social media to anonymously vent and express, how they felt that they've been mistreated in this industry. And I was 100% called out quite a bit for, what happened at departure, how people felt they were treated at departure under my leadership. And I took it all very, very personally, I really did as much as possible to try to reach out to everyone who raised concerns. I feel communication and having open discussion is the best way to handle situations. I think it's more important to talk to people. I think that has far greater power than talking about people. So, I personally, I took that very, very hard lesson. And it really helped me just kind of razor focus on what I wanted Khan to be. And I don't have a lot of trauma from working and coming up in the industry. I love my mentors. I still talk to them like on a weekly to monthly basis. Whenever I travel to New York, I see my mentors. I ask them for recipes still. Like, I have a wonderful relationship. So I want to have that relationship continuously with people. And I think the pandemic really taught me that I personally have everything that I need as a chef. If I can get through anything, like last year, I know I can get through anything, and I want the younger generation to believe that as well. So yeah, like what I learned, of course, of the reckoning and kind of these anonymous calls out is just communication, and that it really kind of focused, helped me focus on what I wanted Khan to be. So at our pop up, we committed to having a extremely diverse team, and I'm committed to having my kitchen and my entire restaurant led by Women X. So yeah, so every manager position was a woman of color, and I sought a very diverse pool of teammates. We paid everyone the same. Everyone got a very fair wage across the board, from the house, back of the house. Tips were divided 50-50 between front of the house and back of the house, because we had about an even number of teammates between front of the house and back of the house. So these are just some of the things that I was experimenting with at Khan, just to kind of push the needle forward. I promoted 3 women of color, during the 5.5 months that we were open. And, not because they were women of color, but because they were the best people for the position. So yeah, these are some of the things that I'm committed to. And I think it's extremely important. I'm definitely committed to having Khan run by women and femmes. And I think it's extremely important. And, it was a very, very different dynamic, I will say, to have a Woman X kind of led kitchen. And I think we all got along really well. And I think, my chef de cuisine, Maranya, I think she's a powerhouse. And, a lot of people in the kitchen really looked up to her, and seeing, a woman in that position, working side by side with me and being able to lead them, that is what I want. Like, I don't need all the attention. I don't need all the glory. I don't need all the credit for the food. I really want to create spaces where everyone feels safe. People feel like they can grow. They get the credit they deserve, and we all work together. And I'm committed to that.
That's awesome. And that's not an easy task. And I think people, and you've set a precedent, and you're pushing, you're following through with what you said. And I think that's very hard for a lot of people to comprehend, and also to follow through with. Like, they don't know how to do that. And I think you're setting an example that I think is incredible.
I know. I mean, I also realized that it's really challenging, because I had a small team. I was able to, like handpick people. I have tons of people that I've worked with that I love, and we have an awesome relationship. So, who's to see what happens when we try to start hiring early next year. I also know that, people, will oftentimes have a hard time diversifying their applicant pool. And it's just something that takes some work. Um, and I also know that people are up against really hard times, and just basically trying to survive right now in the pandemic. It's really hard to implement all these changes while you're literally just trying to make sure that you can keep your doors open. But I hope that, and I'm very committed to this, helps inspire people to slowly and continually push for the same kind of diversity and equity in their own restaurants.
Are there some tools that you think would benefit other restaurateurs and chefs in being able to diversify their kitchen and change their hiring practices? Are there some tools that you use that you can share with them to help them change their systems?
Yeah, I I think it takes taking people under your wing, and kind of just casting your net wide, and if you're only getting applicants for a certain pool, kind of casting that net's wider. Are you looking for people in other states? Are you looking for people in other neighborhoods that might be willing to commute, or that might be willing to relocate? If it's that important to you, are you investing time in maybe younger cooks that you can groom to kind of lead up to that position? The people that I hope become the core team at Khan. I've been working with them for years and years and years. So it takes some time. All of them started as young cooks with me, at departure, and I have so much respect and love for all of them. A lot of them have worked at both Khan pop-ups, and Varanya is my chef de cuisine. She's like the best example of this. She really wanted to work with me, and she stuck by my side. And I made her the sous chef at Khan, and I want to make her the chef de cuisine at Khan when we open brick and mortar. So that relationship has taken years. It's really about just investing in people. Casting that net nice and wide, and just investing in that process. And you can't have nothing's going to happen overnight. That's for sure. So just slowly moving forward and trying to push ahead. I think that's the most important thing.
So that's a really big thing. Mentoring, training, time. Those are three things right there that are really, really.
And at the end of the day, that's what all cooks want. That's what all cooks want.
That's incredible. So what's next, Gregory? You're on the world tour right now. You're like book tour. I've seen your Instagram. You've been in New York. You were cooking at Padma's house, and then you cooked at a huge event. You're like everywhere right now. It's awesome.
My vaccine work. I'm getting tested every 2 weeks just to make sure I'm doing the right thing. But yeah, I'm just absorbing this opportunity. I worked my ass off for quite some time, and last year I was stuck at home doing a couple of things. So it feels good to be able to just connect with people. I've been to New York, and I'm from there, so it's always good to be back and dine there and kind of get the vibe. Philly, DC, Virginia. I've been to Rhode Island. I've been to Massachusetts.
That's my home state. You went to Rhody. Did you get some coffee milk like I sent you that message?
Oh no, I didn't. I did not. Rhode Island's awesome. It was so beautiful there. I actually went with the Marine Stewardship Council. Okay. I'm an ambassador for them, and we went and studied squid. And one of the first sustainable squid fisheries in the world is actually in Rhode Island. And we studied how important squid is to that community. And we were able to talk with lots of fisher people throughout the course of the few days and learn a lot about American seafood. It was really wonderful. So yeah, Rhode Island was really dope. It was really beautiful too. I'm gonna buckle down and absorb, and I'm on this like huge eating research trip, making my way down south, and I'll head back home and try to buckle down and get hankering and open up this restaurant, pick out some tables and sign a lease and all that good stuff.
Yeah, All the little the pieces of the puzzle that not a lot of people understand when you're opening. It's like, okay, picking tables. How many tables fit? Are they going to be square,
Yeah.
round, rectangle? How to move them?
Is the make it comfortable? You
Yes.
know.
It's a new part of the game. So, well, I know you're right now. You're in DC, so you're on a. I'm still having morning coffee here. You're a couple hours ahead of me. I took my son to school, rushed back home so I could get on time for you. Couple quick things. I do a game. It's,
Okay.
No answer is wrong. All right.
Okay.
So, you ready?
I'm ready. Always ready.
Hamburger, hot dog.
Hamburger.
Okay. Ketchup or mustard?
Oh, definitely ketchup. 100%.
Oh my God! When did this happen? Everybody.
Ketchup.
No way, dude.
French fries, eggs, meatloaf. Come on.
No way. No. No. Okay. Chocolate or fruit?
Fruit. Definitely fruit. I'm from the tropics. I'm a fruit guy for sure.
You're actually the first one. Everybody had kept saying chocolate.
Really?
Right.
I live in Oregon. I'm obsessed. Berries, strawberries, like cherries, like mangoes, pineapple. Come on. That stuff's so good.
While we're on this,
yes,
the bush berries that come out of Oregon are unlike any berries anywhere else. Agreed?
Yeah.
Like, the first time I went to the market there, my head almost blew off.
I don't know.
Like,
we got berries on lock. We have
berries are like epic. Berries and mushrooms, boom. But
yeah. I mean, we invent our own mushrooms, or we invent our own berries. Marionberry, that's like one of my favorite berries.
Just seeing them, like, and the difference is, I don't think people realize, you walk through the market, you can smell them. They're so intense, right? Like,
and I'm not gonna call them states, but I've been to other states, and the berries are plump and juicy, but never as sweet as what you will find in Oregon. That's for sure.
And I don't know why. I don't know what it is about the berries, the type. I mean, there's so many different varietals too, which is very, very cool.
Strawberries are huge for us, short season. I mean, California has great produce as well. I think, I definitely respect the produce game in California. I give a shout out.
But the berries are different. I'll say it straight up. Sure. Dude, I live in California. Berries are different in Oregon, dude. Just straight up, okay? All right. Coffee or tea?
Coffee. I like the more caffeine.
Espresso or cappuccino?
Ooh, honestly, I'm a cappuccino person, honestly, because I like a little milky, frothy, fatty deliciousness.
So your questions are a little different because you live in a different diet than the rest of the world. So
I do.
You don't eat certain things, right? So
yeah,
it's tough for me to say noodles or pasta because
noodles, because gluten-free pasta is a little trickier, and there are tons of rice and tapioca based noodles from all over the world that are absolutely amazing.
Yes, I mean, I love them both personally. I can go down either road, but I agree with you. I think the gluten-free pasta hasn't really hit the mark yet. It's a ways to go. Definitely a ways to go. So, all right, for those folks out there, I know you like pizza. Let's be honest, you do, but you can't do it. So how do you do it?
I have a secret recipe for gluten-free crust that was given to me by a friend, and it's great. It's a little on the thicker side, a little thick crust, but throw that in a brick oven. A lot of people have brick ovens in Portland, and I make a good pizza, actually.
And I think these are like really relevant things,
Yeah, it's usually loaded with like a spicy tomato sauce, and maybe it has like Korean chili flakes in it, or maybe it has habanero and thyme, and it's based off like a Haitian Creole sauce. But I just load it up with lots of veggies and throw it in the brick oven, and it's delicious. Chef kiss.
That sounds good. Okay, nigiri sashimi.
Ooh, I'm a nigiri person. I think it's just absolutely beautiful to have a chef sit at a counter anywhere, New York, LA, Tokyo, and have a chef just really pass you that beautiful piece of nigiri. Just grab it with your fingers, dip just the fish in the soy sauce, and that's really, really one of the best. I mean, come on, nigiri is like in my top, I think, what maybe 5 foods in the world for sure.
Isn't it funny that most people don't realize you are supposed to use your fingers to pick up nigiri, and how
Yes.
many people dip the rice and then wonder why it all just falls
Yeah,
apart?
the rice. Yeah, it'll get too salty because the rice will absorb all that soy sauce.
Okay, so caviar, sea urchin.
Oh, ooh, I mean, yeah. I mean, definitely caviar. Come on, like caviar is in that top 5 of my favorite foods, 100%. But sea urchin's pretty good. I just feel like I can eat a lot more caviar than sea urchin, but I love both, 100%.
Okay, lobster or crab?
Ooh, yeah. So I'm gonna have to say crab because I grew up eating like these East Coast blue crabs. And I went to high school in Delaware, so Maryland, tons of crabs, Old Bay, all the good stuff. And now I live in Oregon. Dungeness crab is super iconic, so I've had a lot of crab in my life, and it's a pretty important seafood for me.
Beef or pork?
Pork. I'm definitely a pork person. I actually don't eat a lot of red meat, but I actually like pork quite a bit. And I think from jamon to like all the Italian cured meats to griot, which is like super iconic Haitian dish of like braised and roasted fatty pork that gets fried after. So there's a lot of pork in my life as well.
That's always a good thing. Okay, duck or chicken?
Yeah. I mean, I love chicken like 100% for like every day. It's probably the protein I eat the most, the meat I eat the most, but I'm a huge duck fan. I love duck. I'm actually quite famous for my duck. We did a kind of roasted duck that inspired by a couple of different Chinese techniques. Departure is like a huge hit. We only sold it in December. We would literally sell thousands of ducks, like 1,000 ducks, like in a month. And I kind of made a new Haitian inspired duck at our last pop-up, which is like a huge whole duck that we braised in Creole sauce with habanero, black pepper, thyme. We deboned the whole duck and then rolled the whole thing. And then we reduced to Creole sauce and glazed it in Creole sauce. So it was like a whole duck, like in a big, huge.
Greg, did I just lose you? Oh no! Where are you, Greg? Greg, your Wi-Fi hates me. There you are. You just came back. Okay, so
Right.
explain that again. So the last I got was, it was a duck, and it was. That,
Duck.
you were there for a good
Yeah,
5 minutes.
At Con, we did a whole duck. So it's like a whole boneless duck, which is rolled in its own skin and then tied up. And we called it duck and Creole sauce. So we braised it with duck fat and aromatics.
Oh, dude, this is killing me.
Rolled it in its own skin and then roasted it in the oven. And yes, I'll send you pictures. And then we glazed it in the sauce and we served it in a Finex pan. And we made these tapioca and plantain flour crepes, which you would eat it with, and you just scoop into it, and like it totally just falls apart because it's melting and tender on the inside. It was definitely a labor of love. And definitely, it's a 2-day process, but it's quite delicious.
That sounds. I can't. I hurry up and open the fucking restaurant, Greg, because I want to come up and eat. Okay, last one. Quail or squab?
Squab. When I worked at Jean Georges always makes squab, and one of his like iconic dishes was a perfect little squab half, dusted with a little spice blend, a little corn pancake, and a little tiny nugget of foie gras. So I have a very, very old relationship with squab.
I've had that dish. I've actually had that dish, and it's a great. Greg, thank you so much, Gregory, for taking time. I know your schedule is super power packed. I am looking forward to a time where we can hang out. And first off, I want to eat at Con, but also I can't wait to cook with you again. It's been way long. I definitely can't go running with you because I do not have the running legs, but we'll figure out a way to go do some fun adventure.
Awesome.
Greg, thank you so much. And for folks that want to get your book.
Yes. Everyone's Table, Global Recipes for Modern Health, available at all independent bookstores, wherever fine books are sold. Powell's Books is the local bookstore in Portland, Oregon. And I should have be working on some signed copies actually pretty soon. And then, of course, you can always get it on Amazon. But yeah, it's Barnes & Noble, wherever fine books are sold. It's a labor of love. I guarantee it will not disappoint.
And for those of you out there, follow Gregory. He's always doing fun things, great food, approachable. That's the difference, I think, with Gregory and a lot of other people out there right now. He's making food that you can make at home. And this book is definitely a perfect example of that. So we're all looking forward to Con opening. Enjoy your travels. Be safe. Next time you get a COVID test, tell them which memory you want to erase, because I think they can aim the Q-tip the right direction to get that memory. I had him erase like junior prom, I think. So, all right, Gregory, we shall hang out soon. And thank you.
Good to see you, brother.
You too.